Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires and our week in IndyCar, our final of the year, my friend Leigh Diffey. And we're doing something a little bit different, my friend. Rather than taking the bevy of awesome listener questions, we're going to round out the year first with you, then another one of our most favorite guests, Robin Miller, just talking about your favorite aspects of the 2018 IndyCar season that has passed. So first of all, how you doing, mate? And B, is it hard to fathom that the year's over and we're about to roll over into another season?
Yeah, it is. I'm doing well, thanks, and thank you for having me on the podcast again. Haven't been on in a while, so I think congratulations to you for surpassing 2 million downloads. Nice job on that. But yeah, I mean, it's the time of the year as you know, families and professionals, we all reflect on whether it's personal or work-related stuff, and you know, there's been a lot that has been packed into 2018 and a lot that's transpired in 2018. So I think things like this are fun, you know, just to look in the rearview mirror for a little bit.
So where should we start, mate? Looking back at all of the things that happened in 2018, what's maybe the primary memory or standout moment for you that's going to really capture your thoughts about this season when you look back?
Well, you know, it's with every year that we all get older, you probably do a little bit more reflection, and I think for your listeners, and maybe even for some people in the industry who may not know, IndyCar was the reason I came to America in 2002, and I worked for CART International Television. So Jeremy Shaw and myself did all of the English-speaking international or world feed commentary back then. So we were living here in the States, but we were never heard here in the States. And so IndyCar was the primary driver for me coming to the US, and obviously now have been for a long time a proud US citizen. I always look back to those years, and I'm not doing the whole golden era or glory days, but because I came to this country for IndyCar, I do a lot of reflecting, even when I wasn't working on IndyCar, when I was, you know, deep in sports cars and motorcycles and whatever else. I always do, you know, a lot of reflecting back to those early IndyCar days for me. And the number one point of 2018 for me is that good feeling, and I mean that good positive vibes. There's nowhere where you can get mired deeper into negativity than a paddock, right? because people have their own agendas, and people, they either see the glass half empty or the glass half full. And you know, if there's an issue that they want to grind out, especially to people like you and me, to the media, they'll you know, whether it be drivers, team owners, sponsors, or whatever, they'll very rapidly get into this negative spiral to get their message out to you, so you hopefully tell whether it's the series or whomever needs to hear them having a whine, you know. And is the series perfect? No. Was every race perfect? No. But then that wouldn't be realistic. And so I just think there's so much positivity. There's just a good vibe and a good feel, and we have said this right from the beginning, even before the series got going. And then when we saw the cars on track for the first time at St. Petersburg, there's just a really good, positive vibe about IndyCar again. And this isn't just here in the US. It's in England. It's in Australia. It's in Europe. It's everywhere. People are talking about IndyCar. And I'll happily be corrected or hear other people's opinions. This is mine. People are talking about IndyCar kind of the way that they used to. People are excited about IndyCar again, and that gets me really excited, and I'm happy. I'm just genuinely pleased.
You know, that reminded me, mate, of a story from 2017, so it's not 18, but just a little bit fun of the folks in the paddock who can veer negative or try and wind you up, hoping you'll be their mouthpiece. I remember one fairly prominent team owner, along with some other members of his clan, on pit lane at Indy, telling me how he knew, and they knew for certain, that one of their biggest rivals was cheating, and that I should go down and I should investigate and interrogate that team and get to the truth and publish it. And I then said, thanks, great. So what are your comments? What are your quotes I can use for this? Oh, I'm not going to say anything. What do you mean? I'm like, no. You want me to go and investigate this, hang out one of your rivals, and hang them out to dry, but you don't want to go on the record, but you're so certain about everything you're telling me. I mean, how could I possibly write this without your input? And yeah, the argument fizzled from there. Those are always fun, mate. That's a great point, though, about the positivity, and you also touched on another point, which might be another one of your favorite memories of the year, and that was the looks of the cars. Where does this Universal Aero Kit 2018, knowing what the old manufacturer Aero Kit donkey bodywork with 1,000 appendages hanging off, how did this new 2018 bodywork shape your thoughts and feelings about the season that just passed?
To me, it just goes back to the old saying of keep it simple, stupid, and it's simple, but it's sleek, it's sexy, it's effective. You know, were all of the oval races great? No, but you know, is there any series that has a blockbuster race every time out of the gates? No. So the majority was in the favour of the series, and this new Universal Aero Kit, I think, worked well. Are there tweaks to be made? Yeah, sure, absolutely, with everything moving forward. But, you know, I would much rather view the glass half full than the other way around, and I just think that the change was a good one. And the drivers... You know better than anybody. The drivers will tell you, "Hey, you've got to drive these things now." You know, and it was enjoyable for them. The cars were enjoyable for them to drive, and at times they were a bit of a handful to drive. But isn't that what IndyCar racing's all about? And the moves that Jay Fry and his staff are making at IndyCar to, you know, over the next couple of years to increase the horsepower back up into the mid 900s. Then they're going to be a real handful to drive. And so for everybody who has been kind of living in the glory days of yesteryear and wanting the 1,000 horsepower beasts back, well, you know, we're pretty much almost there. With a third engine manufacturer, you know, on the horizon. Again, it just gets back to the really good, strong, positive points about the growth and the direction that this series is taking. And as we, you know, close the book on 2018, I think for me that's the number one thing, and there's a lot to be happy about. There's a lot to be pleased about, and there's also, we all as human beings, having something to look forward to is very good. Keeps you going, keeps you enthusiastic, and I think there's a lot to look forward to with this series.
I don't mean to steer you here on the favorite reflections of 2018, but I might suggest that as someone born down under, if we're talking about big things to win last season, it was a great year to be from Australia or New Zealand.
Absolutely, and you know, for what happened on Memorial Day weekend, for Daniel Ricciardo to win the Monaco Grand Prix and Will Power to be the first Australian to ever win the Indy 500. What an incredible day. What an incredible weekend. And just having spent some extra time with Will recently, where Steve Matchett, David Hobbs, and myself, we do these theatre shows, these live theatre shows regularly around the country, typically with an F1 theme, but this past one we did in Connecticut, we opened it up to be more broad-reaching across, you know, NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars. We just spoke about some American flat track. It was called A Night at the Races. Yeah. And we had Will as our special guest. And spending more one-on-one time, he stayed at my house. You know, it was really cool to spend that time with him in a personal sense, and to just hear his reflections on it, and just it wasn't a media soundbite, it wasn't a television or a radio or a podcast soundbite. It was just him just talking loosely about how much it meant to him and how much relief that brought him. And you know, that's not a game changer for him, because his game's always been at 100%. That's a life changer for him. You know, he can rest easy now, and we know Will, he's not going to rest easy, but you know, for all of the, of course, for it to be the greatest spectacle in racing, for all of the great Americans who have won the race, for all of the Brazilians and Brits who have won the race, you know, and when you consider that the late Sir Jack Brabham was the man who took the first rear-engine car to Indy, you know, I just wish that Sir Jack was still around to have seen the first Australian to win Indy. that would have been a nice and fitting thing. But great achievement for Will. The way that it happened, the exciting way that it finished for him. And then his reaction. Everyone. We had a little bit of fun on the night at the theatre with him talking about his crazy and intense eyes and that reaction when he got out of the car, and but for the way, even his season on the whole, even though Scott Dixon ended up as the champion, for Will Power's season on the whole, to the way he had some awkward accidents and incidents that cost him a lot of championship points, but then dominates the month of May, and lo and behold, we turn up in your home state and at Sonoma, and he's still a championship contender mathematically. It was an extraordinary season for him.
What else stands out to you, mate? Whether it's drivers, teams, events, announcements, and such, it was a very rich year of things to choose from in terms of either highlights or just impactful moments.
I think it was even more so than him winning the 100th Indianapolis 500. I think it was a landmark year for Alexander Rossi. It was the year. And I don't mean this in any disrespect to the event or to the result, but this was a more important year for him than winning the Indy 500. This because it was for the entire season. People were talking about Alexander Rossi, and with whether it be in awe or excitement, or with the execution of his moves, where he said in the moment he didn't really think they were much. People's making a big deal about some of the very, very risky moves that he pulled off, but he pulled them off. So they were extraordinary, and he I think demonstrated to all of us a depth of courage and commitment that nobody can question. Obviously the year didn't turn out the way he would have liked, especially with the season finale at Sonoma, with the contact with his teammate, and then that kind of hampered his chances from there on out. But he staged a pretty gutsy comeback in the race. I think he has to be up there. I think 2019 is going to be very interesting to see where does a year like 2018 then take Rossi. There's only one thing left for him, that is to win the championship. But does he back it up again and drive with that kind of that relentless determination and passion and show us that this it wasn't just one off? But I don't think it will be. I think he'll have another great year because he backed it up week in, week out, whether it be on an oval or a street course or a road course, and that's what IndyCar is all about, showing that you can do it on all types of tracks.
You mentioned Rossi in terms of growth, and this really being I would say, overall breakout year for him, knowing that he took Dixon down to the wire for the championship. Another little bit of a sidebar I'll throw in that just makes me happy is he and our pal James Hinchcliffe started their off-track podcast here at the beginning of the year. I know that it certainly coming out of the gates was not as big as they had hoped, and I'd heard rumors that they're not even sure if it was going to continue or make it through the year, and every indicator I have seen of late tells me that it is gaining ground, it is gaining more and more fans, it is picking up. So really happy to see that. I guess you could say his on-track work was good, but the off-track work between himself and Hinch is also gaining a wider audience, and that only benefits IndyCar. So good to see that as well. We had some other things this year too, Lee, that I don't know if we could say were pleasant surprises. Whether on the driver's side, we had a lot of rookies. We had one event, I believe at least one event that was new to us. There were some challenges this year. What comes to mind when you think about some of those items?
I was really, I'm getting to know him better, with each time we have an experience, but getting to know Zach Veatch better and better all the time. And I'm just personally pleased for him because, I can remember it wasn't that long ago. I don't remember which track it was, but it happened several times where I'd be walking past the neighbouring announce booth for IMS radio, and there he was sitting in there, without a drive and doing some radio stuff. And then here he is, fighting, in the top 10 and up against drivers that, for sure, he's such a humble young fellow. He for sure he would admit he's up in the top 10, mixing it up, duking it out with drivers that he could only have dreamed of racing. And I was very personally pleased for him. And it was just great. The thing that is so enjoyable about our job, and Townsend, Paul, and myself and our team at NBC Sports, we talk about this all the time. The great thing about our job and going to work with IndyCar is anything can happen on any given race weekend, and I mean that as far as you have no clue who's going to win. You might think you do, but the beautiful thing is we are constantly entertained and constantly surprised, and that, to me, that's wonderful. That's what keeps the series fresh and competitive. And yet again, I think it was hopefully Russ Thompson, our statistician, isn't listening, but I'm pretty sure it was the 12th year in succession that the championship went down to the final race. And that's extraordinary. So, I was pleased. Sorry, to get back to your point. I was really pleased for Zach Veatch to have the year that he had.
I not only loved the kid and loved him long before he got to IndyCar, but just his story is great. His personality is great. Physically, you look at him and you realize, all right, this is truly someone who is fighting to be the size of some of the other drivers who can just throw cars around. I love the fact that he has so many stories that come with him, growing up not in a road racing family, oval racing family, a pulling family, tractor pulling. That was the Veatch family motorsports experience. Big diesel monster going in a straight line, towing a sled. That's how he came into the sport. He might not be large in stature, but personality-wise, I hope that the series, I hope NBCSN, and I hope fans, although he's only 1 year in, realize that like a Newgarden, like a Hinch, like many others who are fun and engaging and just have a really great personality to go with their driving talent, the more airtime, the more whatever time that this kid's given, I think it only extends the sport's reach. So, that kid ticks every box. What about some of the announcements, Leigh, that we saw come through this year, whether it was TV related? We had some announcements of new drivers that are coming in as we look towards 2019. Not only was the year great in terms of racing, not only did we have an unexpected outcome with effectively Scott Dixon beating all of Team Penske and all of Andretti Autosport by himself, we also had some pretty cool news come down the pipeline of, all right, this field's actually going to get deeper when the battle kicks off again here in March.
Yeah, I think the new teams and new drivers coming just helps enormously with the health of any series. But to have that happening with IndyCar is super exciting. You touched on something that affects me directly, and that is NBC Sports, the NBC Sports Group, getting the exclusive contract and rights to IndyCar for the next 3 years. It's 2+1, and for the first time, a broadcaster other than ABC will cover the Indianapolis 500. And for that to be, my place of work and the company I've been with now for 6 years, there is, I can tell you, up and down the hallways of not just NBC Sports, but NBC, big time, whether it be, in 30 Rock in Manhattan or anywhere, there's a lot of pride in the company right now to have got that contract and to be given the opportunity to have yet another marquee sporting event on our air. So the enthusiasm that is within the company at the moment is very high, and I think it's not going out too far out on the branch or on the cliff to say that NBC Sports is going to do some great things to have the championship wholeheartedly, because you got to remember, for the last 10 years it's been on a shared basis and of course, it's not the only sport that does that. Many sports do that, but it's nice to just say, hey, there's one place to watch it, and it's here. It's with NBC Sports now for the entire year and for the next 3 years. So I'm looking forward to that because that helps consistency as well for the series, for everybody involved.
Last thing or two for you, mate. So, looking back on 2018, anything come to mind where there was either a little bit of regret, sadness, sorrow? There's so many positives, but if we're doing a proper look back on any year in any series, we know that not everything was perfect or there weren't some unfortunate things that happened. Anything stand out that you go, okay, well, that's going to be part of my recollections of IndyCar 2018 as well?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is Robert Wickens, isn't it? Because he was, you touched on rookies, and his rookie performance was unbelievable, was outstanding. And, people always, when they think back to amazing rookies in IndyCar, it always goes to either a Juan Pablo Montoya or a Nigel Mansell. Well, the numbers that Robert Wickens was putting up, and particularly on ovals, was right there and incredible. And with every race that he went out, the performances, I think, were even more astounding than the previous one. Yet it came with his modest and humble nature about, look, if I could just get a top 10 today, and the first 20 laps of the race, he's vying for the lead, if not, the top 3. And it just kept happening. I mean, Phoenix, was mind-blowing. And then, Iowa, and he would constantly say, oh, boy, I've never been on a track like this. This one's got me boggled. And the next minute, he's in the top 5.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts where, I'd be talking to him and just, hey, what do you think today? Or whatever. Well, as you mentioned, top 8 would be great. I'm like, after a while, I just tell him, shut up. All right, come on, man. You and I both know you're going around everybody. Whatever it is, sixth my ass. You're going forward. Come on. No. I mean, again, that humility. Gosh. It's a big name to apply to somebody who really only did 3/4 of an IndyCar season, but I can just say this from knowing him and from being around him for many, many years. There is a Rick Mears-like characteristic that Robert has. Supreme talent, supreme humility, never going to tell you, all right, I'm going to go out and just mop the floor with all of them. Just someone where there was just warmth, understated a bit, right? Not big and bouncy and screaming and yelling and drawing attention to himself, but just that kind of warm, easy personality, but holy cow, determination and talent behind it. Like I said, there's something just reminds me of Rick Mears when I think of Wickens, and I'm also fairly convinced, brother, that we're not talking about Robert Wickens was a driver who completed 3/4 of an IndyCar season, period. I am fully confident that we will be talking about, like Robert Kubica, for example, the resumption of his top-line career not too far into the future.
Yeah, and I, as a parent of 2 young sons, where you try and teach your kids all the rights and wrongs of the world and try and make them good human beings, I tell them about Robert. I sent Robert a text message on Christmas Day, wishing him a Merry Christmas and just saying thank you for being the person you are and being so open on social media and keeping us up to date with your journey and your rehabilitation. And just, I said, I tell my 2 young sons about your strength and your drive and your determination. And, of course, it was a tragic event, but I'd like to think back to the amazing and entertaining races he gave us and how he almost instantaneously gained the respect and admiration of the entire paddock. Almost instantly. Coming out in your first race and putting on the pole position and then nearly winning your first race. I mean, just the guy is incredible, and I just I am a I am a keen and enthusiastic supporter and spectator of his progress and comeback and rehabilitation, because with every video that he posts on social media, I just have more and more admiration for him as a human being, and his spirit and his drive.
Let me throw this in here to close, and this is just trying to clear up any confusion as to whether this was real or not. Myself, Robin Miller, some others in the know, told you, dear listeners, and wrote and have said here in the podcast many times that there were some very big teams, possibly even one not owned by a general, not owned by a lieutenant, probably somewhere in the captain range maybe, that expressed supreme interest, as we use supreme once more, supreme interest in Robert's talents and possible future availability. We also know for sure that team pushed back very heavily. No, we didn't. That never happened. You guys are making it up. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but pushed back very heavily. No, never happened. It happened. And that only happens, Leigh, as you well know, when there's a driver who comes in and provides a level of shock and awe where the biggest teams, not knowing this guy, really having no experience with him, go, ooh, we need him.
Yeah.
Is he available? And if not, how soon? What might it cost? I'm not saying things got that far, but when you have a giant team like that says, hey, that guy needs to be on our side, that's about the ultimate proof and I guess legitimization of how talented Robert is. Not was, but is. So I love the fact that happened.
To support your statement, I can tell you for a fact that when Paul Tracy, Townsend Bell, and myself were standing on the grid before the race to do our pre-race show at Long Beach, the Grand Prix of Long Beach, we just happened to be standing in the right place at the right time, and Roger Penske came up to us to say hello, and we had a little bit of a chat before we got going on the pre-race show. And this was off camera. It was just a chat. And he said to us, "What do you think about this Wickens kid? Pretty damn impressive, isn't he?" So I mean, right there at the beginning of the season, he had Roger's attention. But I think before I say farewell, mate, I think. And in case he's listening, he'll probably bash me if I don't say anything, which we have to acknowledge just the incredible effort, dedication, determination, and execution of Scott Dixon. And to feel, in the same year that we witnessed Lewis Hamilton winning a 5th Formula One Drivers' World title, we get to witness Scott Dixon getting 5, and just being in rarefied air. And somebody took exception to the fact that I wrote on Twitter that he has equaled AJ Foyt or partnered AJ Foyt as the only other 5-time champion. Obviously AJ's got more, but somebody took exception to me saying that, said he's in no way even close to paralleling AJ Foyt and equaling AJ Foyt. My point was at 5 championships. And I think, because these numbers, as in Formula One, those record numbers have been up there for so long, whether it be Michael Schumacher or Juan Manuel Fangio or, Ayrton Senna's numbers or Alain Prost's numbers, whether it's pole positions or race victories and world championships won. And it's very much the same in IndyCar. And we're witnessing both Will Power and Scott Dixon knock some of these long-standing numbers over. And to witness what Scott did, and by the way, have the best average finishing position per race than any other champion over the last 10 years to get his 5th championship. It just shows how much there is left in him. Remember how eagerly he was hunted down, and perhaps the end of the Ganassi-Dixon relationship, was closer than we thought. Now he's been re-signed, which is great. I think we can't lose sight of what we witnessed yet again this year with Scott Dixon. How he hung on to the lead but it got dwindled. And, as you made the fair point, that Rossi took it right to the wire. But, I don't think there are enough superlatives or adjectives to describe Scott Dixon, and I think he just continues to get better with age.
And I have been saying for many years now, Dixon is the best of his generation. Some folks have also taken umbrage with that and pointed to his former teammate Dario Franchitti or some others. And again, it's an opinion thing. But yeah, having watched Dixon since he rocked up in Indy Lights and seen all that he has achieved over 15 plus years, 17, however many crazy years in IndyCar, won in so many eras, in the, call it kart champ car era, with a high power turbocharged engine, to the IRL era with lower power, to later in the IRL era as it transitioned into the IndyCar series, into the modern day IndyCar series with the turbocharged engines and such, and now again yet another in this turbo era, but with a completely different aero kit than he won the last one. You just think about the versatility, whatever it is, over essentially every modern formula IndyCar has had. That man has come out on top as the best 5 times. It is nuts. And again, if you disagree, that's awesome. It's one of the great things about racing. But you mentioned superlatives. I've just about exhausted them. I almost don't have any left for Dix, because it's like I just have been, saying, look, Dixon's doing Scott Dixon things. He's doing Dixie things. I mean, that's kind of all I have left at this point. Well, mate, I know you've got some things to do on the family front here. As always, you know how much I appreciate you, not only your friendship, but also your frequent gifting of time for the podcast and support of all we do here. I've told you how much I love the fact that, just strictly by the numbers, looking at the downloads, we know that when it's a Leigh Diffey episode, we are going to have more listeners tuning in. So thanks for everything you do, and thanks for all the support and love you have sent my way through the podcast, brother.
My pleasure, Marshall, and Happy New Year, and let's bring on 2019, because there's so much to be excited about on the IndyCar front, on the IMSA front, on all the racing fronts. So bring it on. Another great year coming. All
right. Before we bring in our man, Robin Miller, we're going to make our final pit stop for the year, all courtesy of our friends at TorontoMotorsports.com, a fine purveyor of motor racing memorabilia and swag, t-shirts, models, stickers, just you name it. Lots of IndyCar themed, and lots of it on extreme sale. Would definitely recommend giving them a visit, and knowing that if you are a listener in the United States, your good old American greenbacks will actually get you more from Toronto Motorsports than you would anywhere else here in the States. And as we do, we pick my favorite question from the previous week and award that person a t-shirt, a Week in IndyCar t-shirt, the awesome little cartoon that my friend Roger Warwick has done, which I think he's going to update with something, I don't know what, but he's working on some sort of tweak for next year. Let's see. I'm going to go with Zachary Campbell. And I loved your question to our guest, Jay Fry, IndyCar's, I guess he's really been IndyCar's president for a couple of years now. He's just had that formal title applied. Zachary asked, with the announcement of Porsche and NASCAR investing $100,000 in their own iRacing.com eSports series this week, is there any possibility of eSports investment on the IndyCar side in the near future? What I liked about your question, Zach, is knowing the answer, and that is IndyCar's been looking, been evaluating, but they're behind on this. And Jay was forthright in saying, in my new official role, I'm having to get up to speed on this one. I also appreciated some of the other questions that came in, like Zach's, that we're on a similar theme. I hope and I believe they helped drive home the point even further, since Jay was able to hear directly from IndyCar's fans that this is a space that they need to fill as soon as possible, not with just whatever they can come up with that might be half-hearted or half-measured, but this is an area where IndyCar is going forward in a lot of ways. You can really look at Formula One And a lot of the examples and advancements they're trying to make, or modifications they're trying to make to their cars to improve racing, improve the fan experience, IndyCar's maybe been a little bit ahead in that regard to F1 in a lot of ways. This is one where IndyCar has not. This is where IndyCar, I think, every day that passes where they don't have an eSports solution, it's more ground being given to IndyCar's competition. So I appreciate your question here specifically, Zach, because I think it touched on things in the exact right manner, and hopefully has just, again, driven Jay to realize that, okay, of the 25 different things I'm trying to improve for IndyCar on a daily basis, wherever eSports fell previously, it sure needs to move towards the top of that list. So send me a note here, Zach, on Facebook or wherever. Send me a DM, give me your address and your t-shirt size, and our pals at torontomotorsports.com will get a t-shirt in the mail to you. All right, with that said, let's call one of my favorite people. We've been colleagues now for more than 10 years. I don't know how long. A long time. And yeah, Robin Miller, he's the best. So let me give the old man a call, and we'll see what kind of mood he's in and what he has to offer. And I just hit record, by the way, Miller, and you better enjoy that gift, or I'm going to stuff it in places that aren't very pleasant.
Well, I think it's going to get a place of honor on my mantle right next to my Dan Gurney 1967 Eagle.
Well, you got the Trans Am CUDA of the Big Eagles, so that was a good little gift. I figured you would like it, and thank you, while we were thanking one another publicly here, for the awesome Americans at Le Mans 3-part, good Lord, anthology written by the awesome Tim Considine. So, yeah.
Okay, Tim, he had a great book on Formula One, but he's outdone himself. I mean, God knows how many hours he put into that. But if people like racing and sports cars, they'll want to get that book. And it's 3 parts, and he's working on the next two eras. But what's amazing is all the great interviews he got, not to mention all the pictures. I mean, it is truly a collector's item. It's like you. It's a collector's item.
Or I'm just collecting dust, and I'm an item.
Or that.
One of the two.
That. Yeah.
All right, Miller. Well, I just got off the phone with our boy Leigh Diffey, a.k.a. Stiffy, our good friend, talking about some of his favorite memories from the IndyCar season that passed, also some of the tougher memories. I mean, it was, you've covered IndyCar for 50 years, which is sad to think, but, we deal with it. But
don't rub it in.
Where does some of the finer memories, or just bigger memories, they don't all have to be positive, but where should we start with you when you think back on 2018 and big Robin Miller thematic items?
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up in your story yesterday on Racer, is that I think between Robert Wickens' emergence and Alexander Rossi, just the fact that those guys basically have come out of nowhere to be winning, leading laps, winning races, winning poles, contending on ovals and street courses and road courses. I mean, those guys, it just goes to show you that. I just remember when Robert Wickens was running Formula Atlantic. I think he was 18 or 19. He won a race, and I remember saying to Derek Walker, "God, I'd sign that guy if I were you." And he goes, "Well, I wish he was Australian. I'd sign him in a heartbeat." I mean, you could tell right then the kid had talent. The thing that was great about Wickens is he didn't want to necessarily be a Formula One driver or a DTM driver. Nobody gave him a chance. He always wanted to be an IndyCar driver.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've done enough stories with him to know that, but the fact that he finally landed back in IndyCar and then just dazzled everybody from the opening bell is just amazing. And I think, like you said, I mean his rehab and his toughness and his attitude has certainly inspired a lot of people. I was going to send him Alex Zanardi's book, and I thought, hell, I don't even think he needs it. I mean, he's got such a great attitude, and he's like, I'm going to walk again, and I'm going to race again. And when I went and saw him a couple times in September at the rehab center here in Indy, I just was talking about Zanardi and Clay Regazzoni making their comeback, racing not Formula One or Indy cars, but certainly racing sedans and things, and I didn't see any reason why you couldn't race an Indy car. And he basically said, you'd have to think that an oval would be probably easier than a road course or a street course, but you never know. I mean, you look at Zanardi, you just covered him. He just had his test down at Rolex and that in-car camera. So, I mean, anything's possible. It's just that I think that Wickens is just he's such a good guy, and he's just really been he's been inspiring to a lot of people just because of his fight.
Robin, where do Wickens and Rossi sit for you in terms of expectations? And I probably know the answer to this, but you were one of select few who saw Wickens, young gun, junior open wheel, clear that this kid was made from special stuff. Then we lose him for a decade. We got him back, thankfully, but you had at least seen the embers of what he could do before we lost him. Rossi, on the other hand, we saw him a tiny bit and then went away for quite some time, turned up in 2016, and obviously won the 500 and such, but part of me wonders, do you look at Rossi and say, maybe his emergence as the main guy fighting Dixon for the title in 2018 was the bigger surprise compared to the guy who you really didn't know when he turned up? Or do you think Wickens' return and just being right there instantly was a bigger surprise for you?
I just think the fact that when you walk into this arena, as competitive as IndyCar is, and he's on the pole and dominates the first race, I just think that blew everybody. I mean, I thought the guy would. When you and I interviewed him a year ago, when he filled in for Aloshin at Elkhart Lake and got to drive a practice session, and you could just how geeked he was to be in an IndyCar, and you thought, man, if he could ever get a ride, in a couple of years, he could probably be pretty competitive. I don't think anybody could have envisioned how competitive he was. And then he goes to Phoenix and he almost wins Phoenix. I mean, the guy he was amazing. Whereas Rossi, I always kept kind of track of Rossi through Autosport, and he was doing pretty well. But then he gets into Formula One, and it's the bottom of the barrel, the worst cars, and you got to pay to be a test driver or whatever. It was kind of a dead end street. So then I always think of our pal Justin Wilson, who came over here in 2003 and said, I started doing this because I wanted to be competitive and win races and drive race cars, and I don't want to race my teammate. I want to race everybody else. And I don't know that Rossi thought that it was. I mean, I think now he's obviously a great spokesperson for IndyCar because he's seen what an opportunity he got. I'm not even sure he realized when he got here what kind of path his career would take. But I remember Graham Rahal telling him when he was a rookie, the first year Alex was here, brother, you want to think about staying here because you could have a long, long career, and this is going to be something. This is why you started racing. You didn't start racing to race your teammate in Formula One 7 seconds off the pace in an inferior car.
And if you look at, I guess you could say the shifting dynamics as well. Give me your thoughts on this. So we come into 2018. Hinch, the well-established leader at Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. We come into the season with Ryan Hunter-Reay as the well-established leader among the drivers at Andretti Autosport. I'm not sure if we were saying that a couple races in or even at the halfway point. I know RHR in particular had some horrific luck, but how did you find that, and how did that strike you that, things that we never even really thought would happen? Two teammates or relatively new teammates coming into the series more or less showed themselves to be number one in the informal pecking order within their teams.
Well, I think Hinch is pretty honest, and I think he'll tell you, and I think he said it to you in one of the interviews you did with him during the season. I mean, Wickens was so good for that team because he pushed him so hard. He certainly pushed Hinch to be better, and I think that's exactly what that team needed. I mean, that's to me it was a win for everybody. And I think some guys would go, well, after you get a team, I mean, Hinch I think took a pay cut and fought for Robert getting on the team.
Yep.
But he had any regrets? I really don't. People are saying, God, Hinch got his butt kicked this weekend. Well, it happens, and the thing is, though, he won a race and he was competitive. It's just that, Wickens is a special guy, and Rossi, he's got kind of a 60s mentality about racing. He's not out there to be friends with everybody, and he's pretty ruthless sometimes, and it's kind of. I mean, I kind of like it. I mean, I like the fact that somebody is just I'm out here to win races, and I'm going to do what it takes. And you know what? He'll, if he bangs enough wheels, he's going to get a few returned. But I think he can probably take it. I really do. It's just that, Hunter Ray's still as fast as he is, and obviously Ryan has some terrible luck. But those two guys, and then you throw in Power and Dixon, and that Newgarden was, he had his moments. It's just like looking at next year. It's trying to figure out who's going to win, and you can't really, which is great because that's why we want to cover it.
I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong because you were there, I wasn't, but I think if Rossi was alive and racing in the 60s against Foyt, I think Foyt would have respected him, but also knowing some of the kind of harder edge passes that he tried, I think he might have gotten choked at least once by Supertex. What do you think?
Well, he could have, but it was it's so different then because, Mario shook the establishment up when he came in, and him and Foyt tangled, and Mario and Ruby tangled a couple times, and they didn't like somebody that was that aggressive because racing was so dangerous and so lethal back then. So, I remember Paul Tracy asked me once, Miller, how do you think I'd have done in the 60s? I said, your career would have lasted about 4 months, and you'd have been spectacular, and then we'd have been at Conkle saying goodbye to you because you would have died because that you couldn't be that aggressive and reckless at the start of your career because it wouldn't have worked. But I think Rossi's pretty smart. I mean, you talk to the guys that work with him, and he knows what he wants in a race car. But I think he's also pretty smart about situations and things. And I think if you rub a couple people the wrong way, then you file that away. And it's just like the thing about St. Pete, I was kind of mad at him because he was so unremorseful, and he never even apologized to Wickens. And then you're thinking, and then as you get to know the guy and you watch him race, you're thinking, well, that's just, that's the way it is. And I think Alex is I think he's adult enough to know that someday he's going to get parked maybe on the last lap or whatever. And that's the way racing is. You just have to pick and choose your spots. But I do think that those two guys, they just, as good as the series has been and as deep as it is, they just raised the bar even higher just because of just the way they drove all year.
What was the bigger surprise for you this year, Robin? Joseph Newgarden going from champ to 5th in the final standings, and he wasn't that far. I mean, he wasn't that far off from maybe finishing 3rd, but really was not going to be vying for a title by the time we got to the mid-season. Newgarden going from champ to 5th compared to 1st or 2nd, or Pagenaud having another winless season for the captain, albeit finishing 6th in the championship.
Well, I think Pagenaud for sure because him and Ben Bressman have been such a good combination, and Simon was so strong when he won the championship, and he almost made it back to back. I mean, he came awful close to come and win a second championship, but I don't know. You talked to him more about it than I did as far as just not liking the car or not getting comfortable with it because the guy certainly hadn't forgotten how to drive a race car. Whereas Newgarden, I think, wasn't he leading the points to come into Indy or something? And you're thinking, holy mackerel, this guy's on a roll. Joseph's whole thing, he was really honest. I remember talking to him out in the parking lot at Portland, and he's like, man, we got to get our act together. We've kind of lost right now. We got to figure out what's going on. And you think about the turning point for his whole season was he's dominating Toronto and, crashes on a restart, which is really unlike him. And he was so perplexed afterwards about how the hell did that happen. I think that was probably game, set, and match for him. But that he's still a kid, and he's one of those guys that truly doesn't. I mean, he's never happy with 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, and that's exactly the kind of guy you want. I mean, when you get used to winning, and you're driving for Penske, and he knows. I think he's such a realist about. Look, I'm driving for the best, one of the 2 best teams, 3 best teams, but certainly the most successful team in the history of North American racing, and I got to win races. That's what I'm expected to do, and nothing else is going to be acceptable. And I mean that's kind of I think that pressure that he puts on himself is good.
What stands out to you, Robin, in terms of maybe one of the more underreported achievements on the year? Do you think it might have been Marco Andretti finishing 9th in the standings? I know 9th is not something that most folks get excited over, but that's coming off a couple of years where, boy, he really wasn't doing much. He finished outside the top 10 for sure. I think he was 16th 2 or 3 years ago in the championship. Or do you think it might have been our boy, the French fry to my hamburger and your pork tenderloin, Bourdais, and the mighty little Dale Coyne Racing Team not only winning the opener, getting another podium at Portland, and finishing 7th in the standings between Pagenaud and ahead of Graham Rahal.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's tough because, I was thinking, you watch the first 20 laps at Detroit, and Marco's on the pole. He kicks everybody's ass in qualifying. He never makes a mistake. He's leading the race, and you're thinking, all right, he's gonna break this losing streak, and if he wins a race, who knows what's going to happen? Then, they got their strategy. I don't know if their strategy was bad, but nobody passed him on the racetrack, and I think he ended up finishing 3rd or 4th in the race, and that kind of turned things around. Whereas Bourdais, you never get the feeling when you go to a racetrack that he's ever, there's not a lot of people talking about him, but you always think he's got a chance to win any race. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about to Marco other than, this is the 50th year anniversary of Mario winning his only Indy 500, and Marco's always fast in Indy, and I was talking to Foyt the other day. It's the only race that counts for so many people. And could this be the year that I quit picking Marco because I felt bad. I've jinxed him. I picked him to win it. But
Your fault.
Yeah, but he's always there. He's always there. And you see how fast he's been in practice and qualifying, and that team's good, and they figured things out. So you keep thinking, okay, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. Terry Lingner, our producer at NBC, I think we all picked who was going to win the championship last year, and he picked Marco, and he said, I'm telling you, he's due. And we've said that a lot, but I think, Marco puts I think he puts more pressure on himself than people realize. I think people he's kind of misstrued. People kind of maybe think he didn't care about anything. He's just out there. Well, I think that couldn't be any further from the truth. I just think he does a pretty good job of masking it. Whereas Bourdais, as many races in championships as the guys won, and when you think about what Dale Coyne used to be and what it is now with Craig Hampson and Mike Cannon and Todd Phillips, and their pit stops are good, and their engineering staff's good, and Bourdais good. So, I guess Bourdais probably was the better story, and if the thing, I guess the guy that to me was the best story it's not that we didn't talk about it, but the guy that was kind of under the radar a little bit was Zach Veatch, because nobody expected anything. And I think he ended up finishing like 14th or 15th in the points, but he had so many good races, and he was such a pleasant surprise because, we watched the guy run Indy Lights and stuff, but you're thinking, man, I don't know, he's such a little guy. How's he going to muscle an IndyCar around? And then I remember him getting out of the car at Long Beach after he finished 4th, and you're like, damn, maybe this kid can handle it. And then as the year, I think the thing that was cool as the year went on, Marshall, he got more and more confident, and you just think about, I realized, okay, I think he had a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, but man, he led a couple laps at Gateway, and he qualified really good at Portland. I think he was in a fast 6th. Yeah, he was 6th at Portland. The kid I think he blew everybody's expectations away, because I don't think anybody expected much, and I think now he earned a lot of respect over the season, and it was really a cool story to watch.
I'm looking at the standings here, Robin, and curious to get your thoughts on Takuma Sato. For someone who is coming into 2018, Indy 500 winner, coming off his best, I believe, championship result of 8th with the Andretti Autosport team in 2017, was really hoping and thinking he and Graham Rahal were going to be a kick-ass duo at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, the Lanigan team. Granted, Graham finished 8th in the championship, went winless as well. That was another big surprise, and we all expect him to get at least one per year. But what were your thoughts on Takuma? I know he got a win, but 12th in the standings, it felt to me like there were bigger things for him to grab, but did you think that was about right for him, or did he fall short?
I thought they'd have, I don't know, I thought he'd really help Graham, and I thought Graham would help him. I thought those guys being together would be I just thought they'd raise each other's game. And I don't know, now that they've shaken up the team again, Alan McDonald's gone to be Graham's engineer, so maybe Takuma's got a pretty good reputation as with an engineering mind and setting race cars up, does he not? I mean,
he's known for being a very good driver of race cars. I don't know if I would put him so much in the. I think that's, if anything, where things broke down a little bit. There was an expectation that he and Graham in the engineering office would be driving the team forward together, and at least, the rumors you hear is that might not have really been the case. So, and that's not speaking negatively. It's just that's what you hope happens. It just doesn't always come true.
The thing that's amazing, I was just looking at the stats here. I mean, Sato qualified in the top 8 6 times, and the race he won, he started 20th at Portland. So that was obviously, I mean, he ran better than he probably showed. And Graham, I just think, I thought Graham might, he contended for the championship a couple years in a row, and I just thought he was really coming into his own. And he had some good races, but. I just think just something that was missing. I don't know what it was, but I know that I was texting Graham over the holiday, and we were just talking about. I said something about this ought to be your year at Indy because you got Alan McDonald, who's probably as good as anybody in Indy, and Graham's had some good runs in Indy.
Oh yeah.
Last to third, and I think this year he probably led 10 or 12 laps, and then a couple years ago he was running third or fourth, had a flat tire near the end of the race when he was. So, I mean, this might be his year at Indy, too, just because I think Alan's really, really good at Indy. You look at his track record, what he's done with everybody. So, it's all confidence and things like that. But it's when you go to Indy and you think about who you got to beat, and you think about, Penske and Ganassi and Andretti, but then you think, okay, so Sato's won Indy and Graham's run good there. They certainly ought to be somebody that challenges for the win. And I just think, Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, if they keep spending money and they keep adding people. So, I mean, they're searching for the right combinations. There's no doubt about it. But I just think, I don't know. I'm just trying to remember, Marshall, what if Sato had some bad luck, or because he didn't run that bad. I mean, not as bad as the final results show.
No, I mean, and I'd say he had some pretty solid runs there, especially towards the middle of the season. There were just some times where it seemed like there were a few too many events where you didn't notice he was there. And coming off as strong of a year as he had in 17, and honestly, I'm not even really thinking about the Indy win in 17. I'm just thinking about there were so many times in that, I believe, the number 26 Andretti Honda, where it seemed like, wow, Takuma's in the mix almost everywhere we go. Or that's what it felt like. And this year, it just seemed like there were a few too many times where it seemed like more of a boom or bust year for him. He was either on the podium at Iowa or more or less dead last at Toronto, or, it was just a really up and down season. But again, first season coming back to a team, but granted, a very different team than the one he drove for in 2012. So I know this. We've seen what he's capable of, and we know that he can be more effective than he was in 18. So that's the thing. I've gone from not being a huge Takuma fan to a genuine fan of his, having seen that, when he is able to put it all together, the guy really is, a force for us to consider in the series. Let's get your thoughts on this, Robin. And I mean, I've written enough about it where I'm tired of talking about it and writing about it. Harding Racing, 2018. That could have been a soap opera. That could have been a half-hour reality show almost on a weekly basis. Hey, we're coming out full season. Great. Gabby Chavez, he's our guy. Multi-year, and it's great. We're all, hey, and by the way, okay, so you're not going to be in the car. We're going to put Connor Daly in for Toronto, and he's going to get a couple of rounds. And hey, then we're going to try a little bit of this, and then we're going to do that. And oh, hey, by the way, we might be sold off, or we might be closing shop, and McLaren's going to take over, and who knows? Andretti's in here. Hey, Steinbrenner. Run us through this chronology of this wacky year. I'm glad where we ended up, brother. There was points where you and I were talking throughout the season like, ooh, this might not even be one and done. This might be half a season and done.
Well, I think, first of all, Mike Harding seems like a really nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
I got to know him a little bit, but I think whenever you come into IndyCar racing, probably the easiest thing to do is underestimate what you need financially and how hard it is to get a real sponsor. And, having lunch with him once and talking to him quite a bit, I think he was pretty confident they'd get sponsorship. And because I said, are you concerned you don't have a sponsor? No, we're going to get a sponsor. So as that happens and you start paying out of your own pocket, I mean, I know he's got a great paving business, but it's still a hell of a lot of money. And I think what Brian Barnhart did was smart because he went and got Gerald Tyler, and that really helped the engineering side. And when they threw, and Gabby never had any help. And, he's a single car guy and a new car team. I mean, had some really good start. I kept telling Hardy his first 4 races the year before. I said, "That's an anomaly, brother. You don't have a race. You don't come in and run as good as you guys did and never even scratch the car." I mean, that's to Gabby's credit and your team's credit, but that just doesn't happen. Last year was more of a reality check, I think, for them about how tough it's going to be, whatever. But I mean, Gerald Tyler came in. And then they had Connor Connor really gave him a lot of good feedback at Toronto, and that really helped step the program up. What I would have really liked to see was have Connor and Gabby run together for the last 5 or 6 races if they'd had the finances to do it, because I think that's exactly what Gabby needed, was just somebody to bounce ideas off of. And Connor's really a good technical driver. I mean, I remember Voigt bragging about Connor when he tested him at Sebring 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. He was like, this kid's really sharp. So, we just got to hope that this whole Harding-Steinbrenner thing works out, and Pato Award gets some sponsorship from Mexico, and Hank Steinbrenner and George IV can come up with a good team, because you got Colton Herta and you got Award, and that's exactly what the series needs is, promote from within and bring up your Indy Lights stars, and I was talking to Jay Fry the other day at lunch. I mean, there's going to be 26 cars at St. Petersburg, and there might be 40 cars in Indy. And when you stop and think about where we were just a few years ago, it's hard to even envision that something this good has happened.
Maybe moves us a little bit towards the close here, Robin. So, as you're wrapping up your thoughts of 2018. What are some of the other highlights that came to mind? Were there any lowlights that stand out to you that when you're going to think back to the season, they're going to jump forward into that beautiful mind of yours?
Yeah. The thing that I thought was probably one of the 3 best stories of the year was Ed Carpenter during May, winning the pole, leading the most laps at Indy, a pit stop, getting out ahead. If he gets out ahead of Will Power instead of behind him, he wins the race. And I just think, you know what? For a little team like that, and Ed's have always been about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Tim Broyles and all the guys on that team. It would have been such a cool story if he wins the Indy 500 and beats Team Penske. I obviously he led the most laps and he was just as fast. He ended up finishing second. So I think that was really cool. And I was just, when you look at the stats and stuff, Marshall, I think the other thing that you got to think about sometimes is, obviously, Will Power's emotions in victory lane and getting that monkey off his back and winning the Indy 500, and how honest he's been about what it meant to him and his career, and all the races and all the laps he's led, and all the poles he's won in the last decade. And there's nobody been faster or better, yet it was incomplete until he won the Indy 500. And I just think, I think you got probably as many emails as I did, but all these people wrote into the mailbag and stuff and said, I really wasn't a Will Power fan until he won the Indy 500. And I realized, well, maybe he's not a bad guy. That really meant something. And I think you and I both know Will's as good a guy as they make. He's a little bit more reserved than most, unless he's on a skateboard, I suppose. That was 20 years ago. But I think Powers, I think he made so many fans after winning the Indy 500. And it was really cool to watch, and it's really cool to watch he gave such a great stand-up speech at the Borg Warner presentation a few weeks ago. I was like, who is this guy? He was so good, so eloquent, and so honest, and just laying everything out about what it meant to him. So I think, it meant a lot to Sato. He was another guy when he won his race, and Will. But then I suppose the other story is Scott Dixon, who I don't think we take for granted, but he wins another championship, and he's just always there. It's not that he sneaks up on people, but he's relentless, and he's the most quiet, relentless guy. I mean, you don't think about him being a bully or dominating things, but I was just looking. Scott led the 4th most laps this year at 357. Newgarden led 485 laps. which, to me, lots of times that's I guess somebody could lead 200 laps of a 200-lap race, and that's, they're going to be in the top 5. But when I think about Dixon winning the championship, and you think, okay, God, Rossi had a fabulous year, and Wickens had a fabulous year, and Will Power didn't have a bad year, but Newgarden was another guy. He led all those laps, and he won as many races. But when you got, what did we have? We had 4 guys win. We had 4 guys win 3 races, and then Ryan Hunter-Reay won 2, and then Bourdais, Hinch, and Sato all won 1. You know what? When you look at Formula One and NASCAR, buddy, I like that. I like the fact that we had 17 races and we had 8 different winners. To me, that's what makes IndyCar fun to cover and fun to watch, is because different people can win, and you can buy a car and lease an engine, and if you get a good engineer and a good driver, you can be Robert Wickens and show up and kick ass.
Let's close on this, Robin. We had an incredibly strong and, I guess, optimism-generating rookie class this year. You've already touched on Wiki, touched on Veatch. Quit touching them, by the way. They've asked me to tell you that. We had a lot of rookies this year. Matthias Lace, Jordan King, Clayman DeMello, Jack Harvey, Pietro Fittipaldi. I love that kid. I hope we're going to get him back soon. Santino Ferrucci. We had Rene Binder come in. Kyle Kaiser, Pato, Colton Herta. And then we looked at next year, and it's like, are you kidding? We get Felix Rosenqvist. We're going to get this, we're going to get this guy, that guy. There's going to be new teams coming in. Why don't you close just sharing some thoughts on some of the rookies that we saw this year, the biggest rookie class I can remember in just about forever, plus some of the monsters coming next year.
I wish Jordan King had a full-time ride, because I think, I don't know, I kind of like his spunk. He seems like he's one of those guys that gets it, and if he got enough laps, I think he'd pick up ovals pretty quick too. I think Matthias Leaks. I think Matthias is going to be. I think he's another guy that he showed sparks of brilliance. He's a rookie. He's trying to learn, and I think he's going to be another guy that he'll be a sophomore next year with AJ Foyt. And if they get the right engineering package with him, I think he's going to be somebody that's going to maybe surprise some people. But Felix Rosenqvist is the people had better pay attention to this guy. When he got the ride, people are like, who is this guy? Well, you're going to find out, because he is everything that kid has ever driven in Europe. He's won at, and he won some big races and in different formulas. And I don't know. Stefan Johansson's his agent, and he's, when you hear the guys at Ganassi rave about his testing and his feedback and how he was right on Scott, Scott Dixon was faster in this corner, and they came back to the next test and they were the same. And we all have high hopes sometimes for guys, and it doesn't pan out. But I tell you what, I think this guy is, and plus, you know him better than I do, but he's a great kid. And, he's another guy that you thought, well, with his credentials, somebody in Formula One's going to snap him up, but he never got a chance. So why not go run an IndyCar and have a chance to have a great career? So I think you're right. I think the rookie class next year is just going to be spectacular. And, Marcus Ericsson's going to be a rookie, and he's got a few laps under his belt.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to get here, brother. I really can't. Well, you're going to hate this part, but I love making you uncomfortable. You went through the wars this year yourself. We got you back. We're more than happy to have you still here. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. I know a few people put some hexes on you. Maybe a couple drivers and team owners too. But
this is quite true.
We're quite happy to hear that Robin Miller, and see that you are back and writing and doing your normal routine. And yeah, man, it was a crazy year. Great year, lots of surprises. Just genuinely can't wait for 2019 to get here, and you and I will do a season preview once we get a little bit closer. But also good to know our man Miller back on the front line doing what he loves. So.
Well, son, as I told you, you raised all that. You were nice enough to raise money for me with them AJ Foyt stickers, which are, even AJ liked them. He didn't want to smack. He thought they were pretty funny, and to help with my cancer bills, and that was great. And then all the work you did. Oh, when I was getting my ass kicked in October, November, December, all the things you did. So, I owe you a huge debt of gratitude for carrying everything, not just IndyCar, but sports cars. Obviously, you do that too. So I'm glad your wife's feeling better. And, it's not like you work pretty hard. Me, I don't work very hard. And, I mean, it's just like, how lucky am I? I get to work for NBC and Racer and get to go, fly around and cover races. And I've done this for 50 years. It's like working in Toyland, brother. It's not really, people say, are you back to work? And I'm like, how would you know if I was back to work? I do the mailbag, write a couple of bullshit stories, a column, a few features. I mean, how would you tell,
Well, all right. It's getting closer to dinner time. I think I hear Bruce Martin knocking on your door, getting ready to take you out for some brisket, so I don't want to hold you back.
What are the sides? Bruce called me up the other day and wanted to know if the steak was good at Bynum's. I said, who cares? If you're buying it, you'll probably eat at Ponderosa because you're so cheap. We love Bruce in a different way.
Yes, it usually involves a laser scope that leaves a little red dot on the forehead. But yes, there are many forms of love. All right, Miller, we'll get back to doing nothing. I'm going to go produce me a podcast. And
good job on the FaceTime audio.
Hey,
it actually sounds good on this end too.
We finally have figured out the solution after 2+ years. And hey, thanks to everyone who tunes in and listens to our Week in IndyCar show. Thanks to Cooper Tires for supporting this. Hoping to have I know we're going to have some great news in the new year to share with you about some other partners wanting to come on board. So again, thanks y'all to listening, to sending in great questions throughout the year. Thanks for supporting the format change to going to listener-driven show. And yeah, can't wait for 29 to get here and 2019 as well. And we'll talk to you next week with the Week in IndyCar podcast.
Hey, one more thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Townsend Bell said that Bobby Unser Pikes Peak audio made him laugh till he cried.
Well, that's that is
good. You really think Unser said all that? I said, yeah, Marshall just got the tape. Basically, Marshall said, hi, Bobby, and he started talking. Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, it is just a transcription of the audio there. So, yeah, Uncle Bobby, the gift that keeps on giving. And I got to get continuing to work. It's a long process, but continuing to work on the Bobby Unser roast video. So we're going to have that done here as soon as we can. And that's a Robin Miller and Steve Shunk production that the world I know is going to love. So, all right, well, let's let people go and enjoy the rest of their year. All right, Miller.
Happy New Year, you old slug.